Happy Saturday afternoon, Chicago. Welcome to Meeting the Moment. I am Lorie Smith. Meeting the Moment is powered by the Chicago Community Trust. And I am so glad that you all joined us today. I have a very exciting show for you. The Chicago Community Trust designed Meeting the Moment to help nonprofits develop communication strategies to navigate uncertainty with clarity, confidence, and purpose. And today we are talking collective power and collaboration. And I am joined in the studio by two gentlemen who know all about this. And I'll be bringing one on virtually as well. One young lady that I'm excited to meet and talk to. Let's talk collaboration and collective power, because the challenges that we are facing right now are too big for any one organization to solve alone. But when we come together, aligned, intentional, and rooted in community, that's when real change will start to take shape. In studio with me, he's no stranger to the WVON audience. His name is Dion Dawson. He's the founder and chief dreamer of Dion Chicago Dream, an award-winning social enterprise reimagining food access through dignity, data, and delivery. I'm also joined by Nathaniel Vietz Van Leer, Senior Director of Operations at My Block, My Hood, My City, an organization dedicated to exposing, inspiring, and connecting Chicago's youth and communities through service and opportunity. Gentlemen, welcome to Meeting the Moment.
What's going on? What's going on?
So glad to have you here today. And today we are talking collective power and collaboration. And let me start here. Why is collaboration not just important right now, but necessary?
You go first.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think nonprofits often are taught to work in silos, right?
Mhm.
We're taught that it's a competitive environment, that the pie can't get any bigger, that we have to fight for kind of every dollar, which means we have to separate ourselves and our identities from each other. But I think that if we do that, that's how the nonprofit industry is easy to take apart. It's easy to make that go away. And when that goes away, our clients and those we serve are the ones to suffer. So it's always very important for us to collaborate and find our shared identity.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to make sure that you build that muscle out.
Mhm.
So, people think that collaboration is one set mode where, okay, you collaborate with everything and on everything, but it's the opposite. It's
Right.
being able to know when to collaborate and how to collaborate. I think that's the biggest thing. So just being able to know how to do that, know who to talk to, know how you're going to work, and ultimately know those roles. That's why it's important, because that's a part of business. And knowing how to do that, it will be key to kind of getting through these next couple of years for sure.
Yeah, Dion, you have built something that's reaching thousands of households weekly, literally.
Yes.
And that's probably, by the time we have this conversation next month, that's going to be a very low estimate, I believe.
Yes.
So let me ask you, what have you learned about working across sectors? Because you work,
Yes.
you do too, but you work across sectors, community, corporate, government. What makes that collaboration actually work?
I think the first thing is knowing who you are, right? Is understanding the role that you play, you, your team, your core product or program, because then that makes everything else easier. A lot of times when we talk about collaboration and partnership, there's no clearly defined roles. And so when you don't have that, there's a lot of overreach, there's a lack of clarity. And ultimately, that's a waste of resources.
Yeah.
Because, in capitalism, time is money. You know what I mean? And so if you're wasting time, you're wasting money. And right now, with all the constraints, with all the funding shifts, with all of the questions around what we're going to do, it's really been important for us to know who we are and what our product and our value add is, not only to the people we're serving, but more importantly to those partners and who we're collaborating with.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, I make sure that we ask, what can we provide? And we know what we're giving as opposed to just getting.
Nathaniel, I want to put that to you as well, particularly on the operation side, making sure that this work actually happens. What does it look like behind the scenes?
I think a lot of it is the relationship building as well that you don't see. So it's like, if you're going to collaborate with another organization, are you just sending them an email saying, hey, can we collaborate? Can we work together? Or are you not going to take them out for coffee? Are you touching base about what their organization's needs are, where their growth points are, right? And really thinking about the sustainable relationship building instead of kind of the transactional thing that sometimes happens, especially across the nonprofit sector. And on the operations side, I think it's just about making sure that everything you're doing is still going smooth, and the kind of the background stuff that isn't as sexy as the stuff in front. You see the volunteer work, you see the amazing video footage of the work that's being done. You sometimes forget some of the nitty gritty spreadsheets that have to be done to make that happen.
even though both of your organizations are pretty much Chicago focused, I know you have had the opportunity with the work that you do to connect with other organizations outside of the Chicagoland area. How are you seeing a difference with the way these relationships are built within Chicago?
Oh no, absolutely. I think Chicago is lucky enough to have a lot of talent across, the spectrum and across the aisle. I think that allows us to really learn how to collaborate at every functional level. And so here in Chicago, and even with what we're doing with our tech product, because we have a nonprofit and a for-profit, our for-profit Cosmic Crate, we're already in multiple states. You know what I mean? With that, and what that does is taking all of the learnings and all of the infrastructure that we built with DI Chicago Dream with logistics, and basically taking that and applying it to every other place around the country. But to be able to say that it's created and headquartered here really means something.
Yeah, Nelson, I'm sorry, Nathaniel, I'll put that to you as well. What are some of the differences that you've seen with partnerships within the Chicagoland area as opposed to maybe collaborations or potential collaborations outside of the Chicagoland area?
Yeah, I think Chicago is an amazing city, like, one of the most diverse in the nation, but also we talk about it being so segregated all the time, right? Those 77 different communities all having this kind of different culture behind them, but also, in a lot of ways, neighborhoods have kind of been taught to box out because, we see these gentrifying forces. We see these agencies coming in that, might seem like they're giving and helping, but really like, once the funding cut's gone, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Or, they're really coming to do kind of a property grab. But we've seen a lot of these things, especially like in places like Pilsen, right?
Yeah.
With these forces coming in. So when we're thinking of collaboration in Chicago specifically, earning that trust is really important. Coming in with just like, coming in to collaborate without having an idea of what you want to do, I think is always a good thing. A mentor of mine said, if you really want to work in community, I don't want you to come meet me at a business skyscraper. I want you to come to the laundromat, right? And I want you to sit with folks, and I want you to come the first day and chat up with folks. The second day you come back, you continue to chat up, and maybe the third day you have an idea of, hey, maybe this is how we can collaborate. But maybe that, that community and that group is going to be willing to bring that idea to the table. And that's like real community organizing. And I feel that's fundamental to also how we collaborate with nonprofits.
Yeah. Speaking to your point about the segregated city, the 77 different communities, with that level or that type of segregation comes certain mindsets, certain belief systems, certain behavior patterns. When you're talking about different organizations within those 77 communities, you're talking about different egos, you're talking about the need to control vision, the need to control execution. How do you deal with that? How do you navigate that and still be able to get the work done? I see you laughing.
It's just because it's also the nonprofit industry. We have got a lot of big personalities, and I think these personalities, that's what really draws, it draws grant dollars, it draws community members, like folks who can really express the passion of this work, because this work is so important to so many people. And I think sometimes when you have so many big personalities, it's hard to kind of level down and get to those talking points. I think it's time and intent. And also really talking more about how we can navigate differently together.
Yeah, I'll put that to you as well, Dion. Particularly coming in the building and re-execution process of the Ripple Effect tour, which, oh my God, I missed it. You, Xavier Ramey, Jamal Cole. I mean, I was just like all these big brains in one room, and I missed it. But with that type of collaboration, how do you navigate personalities and ideas and vision and without clashing?
Well, I think, let's be clear. There is clashing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that, understanding that that's okay. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times what people see with how, I lead and how my team, we have, last mile distribution in all 77 neighborhoods and also, across the county. That does not come without some type of clashing, but also, two things that I always love to lift up is number one, you have to be consistent. You know what I mean? Understanding that when you know who you are, and you're consistently who you represent yourself to be, then you can at least lower some of the friction that may arise. But the second thing is I try to make sure that we have a set agreement on core information. A lot of times when you're talking about, different, ways people were raised and different approaches and different egos and different emotions, I always want to make sure that when we speak and when we think about coming together, that we agree, okay, we're starting from this point together. And a lot of times we don't do that. A lot of times we think because they do good work and we do good work that we're just going to go. No, let's take a moment. Let's talk about what the goals are. What's our true north? Because once we know what our true north is, we'll stay consistent on that path toward that true north. But the moment that we lose the language, the moment that we lose that accountability, that's when a lot of things get crazy. And you'll look up a few months later, and it's no longer about where you both were trying to go.
Mm-hmm. With both of you, what you do is very systems driven.
Absolutely.
What separates collaboration that looks good on paper, that looks good in front of the press, from collaboration that is actually effective?
Well, I think the fun thing about it is it can look good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It just won't look good for long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, the great thing about it is, when we talk to and we have partners and we have people who are close to us with what we're doing, I think that the beautiful thing is over time, you see a natural progression and it gets smoother as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that aren't real, the ones that don't mean what they say, the ones who are only doing it for funding or for the newsworthiness of it, you come back in 4 weeks, you come back in 8 weeks, and the only thing that was there was the press release. There wasn't any work. And so I think it can look good because I'm a comms and I'm a branding guy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's when you talk about ripple effect, that's kind of one thing that ties all of us together. You know what I mean? We can stay on message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But more importantly, you want to have that tangible value add. And over time, that thing will either unwind or it'll bind. And I think that's the difference between the two.
Yeah, Nathaniel.
Yeah, and and with a brand like My Block, My Hood, My City, kind of we're an exciting brand. A lot of folks look to us to, in some ways, also magnify their message. We have over 100,000 followers on Instagram, high quality video. But there's a lot of collaborations that we do behind the scenes, for good reason. For example, we had one of our schools in Little Village, during this ICE crisis, was trying to get food home to students because students were afraid to come to school and their parents kind of were keeping them in, but they still wanted to make sure those folks were fed. So what we did was we did a collaboration with a food distribution program in Little Village. We helped raise funds for it, and then we worked through them to distribute the food. Now, because of the population we were working with, we didn't broadcast that. We didn't come with the cameras or the videos. In fact, very few people knew we did that work. And because of that clientele, we had to operate differently.
Yeah.
And those are collaborations that you're not going to see, right? They're happening all the time in Chicago.
What happens when an organization is so used to working in a silo that they're finding it difficult to collab? How does an organization who's been working independently, hyper independently, start to build trust?
Well, I don't think that is. I think trust is part of it, right? But a lot of this is muscle memory. You know what I mean? I refuse to allow that to be the thing we lean on. It's not about trust. It's about accountability. And when we talk about these organizations, that is a direct indicator of where that leadership is. The leadership is responsible for positioning the organization in the best possible way to survive. And so when we think about that, even if they've been operating in a silo, then I believe that if you look to that C-suite, if you look to that executive director or that CEO, you'll see someone who is not working with other people, who's not around the people they're serving or their contemporaries. The reason why I'm so comfortable is because I'm no better and no worse than anybody. But I don't remove myself from community and only surround myself with other CEOs. It's the opposite. I know who I am, but also I have to make sure that I am not uncomfortable anywhere. When we first started, I tell people we started from nothing, no money in 2020. And so growing into, almost $7 million operation, I've seen how we could have changed for the worse. One of, when you're going to have Ms. Butler, on in a little bit. And, literally one of my mentors, friends, of course, one of the first grants we ever received. We're not, early on, we would be able to see each other more. But also there's always this open line of communication, even when to the point when her staff can't get in touch with me. You know what I mean? She shoot me that text like, hey, man, you better respond. But I love it because that's the thing. And so when we talk about these silos, I put more power and activity on the leader and that org than the silo itself. The silo is but the framing. The silo is but the containment device for what we can really do. And that could change today. You know what I mean? The silo is something that if we woke up and decided, you know what, every week I'm going to have breakfast with a leader with a smaller org and a larger org or something. Like we could be so intentional. And I think that's the thing. We have to get back to that intentionality because you don't have to force yourself around people. You don't have to force yourself to work. But what I love about this is those people who know me and those people who know the work we do and the people who know my team, it lives beyond just my personal interests. And that's what it's really about.
Yeah. I want you to speak too, because
Yeah.
this is so good. This is so good. And I know there are some organizations that are listening that could be gleaming from this type of wisdom. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I think how you do outreach is also important. If you're used to living in a silo and you're trying to collaborate with an organization, I get a lot of emails that are just like, "Hi, we would love to collaborate with My Block, My Hood, My City." Right?
Mhm.
That means you haven't done any research to like find out what specific. That means you're not coming with
Mhm.
ideas. You're not presenting like a true like project for us to work on. In some ways, I see that as being like, oh, you're trying to kind of use what we have to come up with something, or even have me construct it for you. So I think of that kind of as a transactional email, whereas a transformational one would be like, hey, I saw your Explorers program does amazing work with high school students. I have a youth program myself. I feel like we could do some really great peer-to-peer mentoring, especially after school, because I know you're an out-of-school program. Can we do coffee? Like, I'm going to take that offer immediately.
Right.
And I'm going to run with it differently.
Yeah. Is there a fear that comes with that though? Because what you're talking about, it sounds pretty practical, like, do the research, build the relationships. What's the fear that comes with that? Are people afraid of their vision being poorly executed? Are they afraid of the vision being rebranded as something else? Where does that fear come in, and how do they deal with that? Because it sounds like with your organizations, you've had to kind of, maybe in the beginning deal with a little bit of it, or maybe not at all. But how does a person who is dealing with that get past that and, execute their vision?
Well, I think understanding, okay, for example, two things that I ask myself every day, right? The first one is to what end, right? And everything has to serve the thing.
Mhm.
And so, if the first thing, emotion that you feel is fear,
Mhm.
that's an indicator. Let's explore that. Why are you scared to collaborate or partner? It's either because of one of two things. It always boils down to you are nervous about the value you're giving, or you're nervous about the value you're getting. And that's it. And so we have to make sure that we can like really separate and ask ourselves, why is there trepidation? Because if you're nervous about the value that you're giving, then okay, let's look at the programmatic design. Let's look at what we have to strengthen. Let's make sure that we know who we are and that we have KPIs, just like you talked about your marketing meeting.
Yeah.
You got to know your numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then if it's about the value you're getting, then maybe that partnership is not as strong as we think it is.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you got to be excited, just like when you want to have people join your team and join your cause. You want to be excited to bring them in because you were either motivated by what they did or who they are. That's it. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I always ask myself every day is, what did I miss?
Mhm.
Because I'm not perfect. I'm infallible. So what I want to make sure is that when we're talking about, that fear, understand I must be missing something.
Mhm.
Your natural emotion, your natural starting point is not fear. It's peace. And the moment that it's disrupted, you need to have a process to assess that. You need to make sure that you're able to actually say, why do I feel the way that I feel?
Mhm.
So then we could get down to, because then at the organizational level, that could deter you all from making the pivots that you need to make. And that's a big thing.
Yeah. Have you seen that with My Block, My Hood, My City as well?
I think the fear is a normal thing. I think like I opened with, we are taught to compete. When you receive a grant response saying, hi, we had 5,000 submissions and we selected 32 orgs and yours was not the one. And you kind of get those emails multiple times.
Mhm.
Yeah, you get to kind of feel caged in. You feel like if I do not stand out, I will not get money. That means the young people I'm supporting will not get their supportive services. You kind of get into fight or flight mode, right? The adrenaline hits. And I think from that fear, it comes this place where I do think you do more transactional stuff. You do kind of these attention grabs in order to kind of get you what you need. But I think without collaboration, especially in these times, the nonprofit industry can't survive. So it's less of, am I willing to? It's like, do I want to survive? Then I have to.
Yeah. That makes sense. This is exactly why these conversations matter, because across Chicagoland, there are leaders that are doing this work every day, building together and not alone. So we're going to take a moment to spotlight one of them with our correspondent, Candace McCollum. This is the segment we call The Doers. Meeting the Moment is proud to present The Doers, a special feature shining a light on one of Chicagoland's premier nonprofit organizations. They lead with purpose and deliver real impact where it matters most. Now, meet this week's doer.
Good afternoon. I'm Candace McCollum. Welcome to our feature called The Doers. I am with Naomi Davis of Blacks in Green, otherwise known as Big. How are you?
I am feeling big.
I love it. Now, can you tell us about Blacks in Green and your role? How did it start?
Well, it started, as does a lot in the Black community, with a sense of despair over decades that the Black community, as I knew it when I was a little girl, was diminishing. It was disappearing. It was dissolving. And so I decided that I was going to figure out something that one person could do. I had to do something. And I created the 8 principles of Green Village Building, did a bunch of research. Few years later, opened Blacks in Green and began doing program to do what? Create walk to work, walk to shop, walk to learn, walk to play villages where African Americans own the businesses, own the land, and live what we call the conservation lifestyle, which is basically households and homesteads that produce their own energy, grow their own food, clean their own water, and recycle their own waste. And so the idea was we were going to be self-sustaining. We were going to do 2 things. We were going to increase household income via the new green economy, and we were going to increase community resilience against the harms of climate crisis. And we were going to do it through business ownership, home ownership, and property ownership. And again, that good old Great Migration conservation lifestyle.
So I love this concept. Now, you just talked about ownership, owning land, businesses, and resources. Tell us, why is ownership central, so central to closing the racial wealth gap? Because I think sometimes we don't get that.
Yeah, and I get it that we don't get it. My parents were able to buy our home with the help of family when I was like 7 years old or so. And my brother and I were like, yeah, we already live here. So what, it was this big family announcement. We own our own home. And we're like, okay, so what? We're already here. But what we're not understanding is that in the American dream, one of the policy drivers of wealth in America is based on home ownership. So there's lots of ways that you can save money, that you can make money through home ownership. If you own the home, you're able to get tax deductions, you're able to get credits, you're able to borrow on it. You're able to have a wealth of opportunity that's tied to policy that can either save you, make you, or really exponentially expand your money.
I love that because, a lot of people, it's like you said, they own a home, so what else? But I think also a lot of people who rent, they're scared to jump over to ownership.
And I think that, first of all, it's fine to rent. And, like if there's no renters, there's no landlords. It's an ecology of a community.
Now, this is perfect for my next question. How does Blacks in Green directly impact everyday people in neighborhoods like Woodlawn? What changes can they actually see or feel?
To do something concrete, visible, tactile, that neighbors could say, hey, something's going on here. We started a garden. We took land that was actually owned by the city, and we had one of our good friends from across town, Christy Weber, came down on her Bobcat, and we tilled that land over, and she donated a whole bunch of green material to us, trees, bushes, shrubs, flowers, and we started our first garden.
That's
and
beautiful.
The idea is that there's health and well-being. There's wisdom, there's God in the garden. Mm-hmm. and it gave us a framework, a platform from which we could invite conversation and relationship with our neighbors.
Now, how can we follow you on socials?
Okay, we're at blacksandgreen.org on our website. We're at Blacks and Green on Facebook, on Insta, on YouTube, LinkedIn, and website. Just look for Blacks and Green. We're there.
Well, Naomi Davis of Blacks and Green, thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday afternoon. Everything that you are doing, it's passion, it's needed, it's culture, it's Chicago. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm Candace McCollum, and this is The Doers.
Congratulations and thank you for your commitment to public service. Your organization keeps Chicagoland in motion because doers don't wait, they work. To find out more about this week's feature, visit wvon.com/meeting the moment, powered by the Chicago Community Trust. Thanks so much to Candace McCollum and to Naomi of Blacks in Green, doing the work every day on the ground. Again, we have in studio with us Dion Dawson of Dion Chicago Dream. We also have, I'm going to get this correct, Nathaniel Vietz. Van Leer. Thank you. Nathaniel Vietz Van Leer, Senior Director of Operations at My Block, My City, My Hood. And joining us via StreamYard to join the conversation is Aisha Butler, co-founder and CEO of RAGE, the Residents Association of Greater Inglewood, an organization focused on community development, resident engagement, and reclaiming the narrative of Inglewood through action and ownership. Asia, welcome to Meeting the Moment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Superstar, what's going on?
Yes.
Hey, Dion, how are you?
What's up?
Listen, Asia, your great work and mentorship precedes you. So I'm so honored to have you on Meeting the Moment. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
We are talking about collaboration today.
Yes.
And I know you've been listening to the conversation. And I want to ask you, because your work is also so deeply rooted in community, from your perspective, why is collaboration especially critical in neighborhoods like Inglewood right now?
So for us, I think collaboration was how we kind of started, even from the offset in 2010. Our association is a neighborhood association, so our co-founders were from different wards. We had 6 wards back then, and so we wanted to collaborate to be one neighborhood. So I think everything that we have done has been in the collaborative nature, only because it's so much to tackle in Inglewood. And as a resident association, we know very clearly we cannot tackle all the ills that sometimes face our community. So similar to what Dion was saying before, it's very tactical though, and very intentional, because it has to make sense not only for your organization but also for the individuals that you serve. You can't just pull up, as they both talked about, and just say you want a partner, and we don't know who you are and what your intentions are and where you've been before you showed up in our zip code. And so even with us, we have a model of connect. That's the first connection, the hellos, the going to the meetings and learning who people are first. And then we really take, and this is what takes the most time, we take our time building relationships. It is not a quick thing. If you want to step into action, we have to know who you are. We have to know your values. We have to know the values of your organization. And then if we need to, we would take action together. And that motto has sustained us for the last 15 years in terms of how we move in the space of Inglewood.
And what are some of the biggest barriers that you've seen when organizations try to collaborate in community spaces, particularly?
I think the biggest barrier that I've seen is the jump right into action. And that could be based off for something emotional, like a protest, or that could be, jumping into a press conference that folks are upset about, and then not really having a true relationship. When I first started volunteering, I wanted to just jump into Inglewood and just, hey, I'm a volunteer. This was 2008. And people looked at me like I was crazy. They even, the organizations, we don't care that you're a homeowner. We don't care that you live here. Who are you? And when I kind of got checked by our elders in the beginning with my eager self, at that point I realized, oh, you need to observe. You need to really sit back and you need to watch and you need to build these relationships, person by person, one-on-one. And then if there is a gap you can fill, then try to fill the gap. And I think that's the approach I tell every organization. Very similar to My Block, My City, My Hood, very similar to Dion's Dream Chicago. We get emails every day to partner. Like my team every single day. And people we've never heard of, groups we never heard of. And we do too much activity for you not to connect with us before you send the invitation to partner. And so we always tell people, hey, we will consider that, but actually come to our village meeting. Observe, because most likely what you want to partner for may be already happening, and you can really just complement that instead of just Googling Inglewood. We pop up and then all of a sudden we get this email from from wherever. But I would say the time sometimes that people omit to build relationships and try to go right into work is the biggest barrier to anything being successful.
So there seems to be a running theme here, because I keep hearing, do the research, do the research, do the research. I think that, and you all can weigh in on this, guys. And also the phone lines are open, 773-591-1690. If you are leading, serving in, or served by a non-for-profit in your area, this conversation is for you, and we want you to weigh in. 773-591-1690. Again, I keep hearing, do the work, do the research, do the research. Do you find do you run into a lot of other organizations, budding organizations, who are moving, how can I say this? They're moving mostly on adrenaline, momentum, emotion, and don't actually know what it takes to get this work done?
Well, I think, of course you do, right? But I think also, you want it. The adrenaline is fine, but the adrenaline without understanding what it is you want to do. You know what I mean? Because, Aisha said it best. It's like, okay, someone might be doing that thing. If you don't even know what your thing is, and you're going off of, hey, I want to do something. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that you understand and you're aware that your intentions aren't enough. And a lot of times we have leaders and we have organizations who feel, especially when it comes to nonprofit, that intention is way more important than execution. And it's not. You have to balance it out. And so I think that, wanting to do good is amazing. But also you have to do good. And you also have to be aware and accountable enough that if it does not land, you can tidy it up and correct it, because it's about the relationship and about getting it done for the people you hope to serve. You want to do something for people. It's not about you. We feed people, but it's also about feeding them. It's about the end user experience. And if you aren't making sure that there's a feedback loop to who you're serving back to you and your team, then adrenaline will win out. And you're going to have relationships that you could never repair.
That's so true.
Nathaniel, weigh in. That's my God.
That's content there. I think when you see successful collaborations too, a lot of time you don't see the background of it. Like, I know like Jamal Cannon with the block, right? Like we
Jamal, yep.
We brought youth to the block just this week for an exploration. We picked them up from school, brought them there, did an exploration, we fed them afterwards, right? And that collaboration, I think the first collab was 7 years ago when we both worked with youth at the Youth Survival Summit, which was a wild event we had in the top of the Hancock building, where Jamal was like, hey, I want to have a sleepover on the top of the Hancock. Let's make it work. I was like, all right, I guess I'm operationalizing that. Right? That event was not me in my planning. That event was a collaboration with at least 12 different partners, including the block, to bring all these people together for a single time to help support young people and help them survive a violent Chicago summer, right? And when we're united on that one purpose, amazing stuff came out of it. And from there, we have all these tendrils of partnerships that are now lasting almost a decade.
Wow. So to those who may be watching, who either are starting a nonprofit, have been operating a nonprofit in a silo again, because again, we have those silos in Chicago. Can you communicate, and I want each of you to answer this from your perspective, can you communicate to them what happens to organizations who don't figure out how to work together and what is potentially at risk?
I mean,
especially with what's coming.
Of course. Well, I mean, it's not coming. It's here.
It's here. It's here.
You know
but
what I
I
mean?
think some people just haven't felt the effects of
No,
it
absolutely.
yet. But
well, I think first and foremost, what you want to do is, it's okay to want to be a part of the social fabric of your community. You know what I mean? But you want to always start with, okay, what is being done? Because something is being done everywhere. And once you can accept that you don't have to have this hero complex, you know what I mean? The most beautiful thing, and I'm so lucky that when I started, two things were true in order for us to really get to this point. The first one is, I had my ears open more than my mouth was. And that's hard for somebody to talk a lot like me. But what I'm thankful for is that as I look back, when we first started with that community fridge outside of a liquor store, I soaked up as much game and I gave as much respect as I could. And I still do. Because it's also, if you really see yourself as part of that community, then you won't disrespect it. That's the funny thing. Right. I tell people all the time, if you really, like, I'm really Inglewood. Yeah. This ain't a game. This is not cosplay. Like, I really love Inglewood. I ride through, I wave, I love, if it, like, I do, like, it is just a part of me. Yeah. And so you want to make sure that they understand that, and that you start with something, but you got to immediately acknowledge, okay, something is being done. Let me figure out what it is. You Google it, you look on social media, whatever, you knock on doors, you ask. And then after that, you immediately understand that right now, this is one of the most dangerous times in human history. I tell people, before this administration, I thought we were in the 60s and the 70s of growth. Yeah. We're not. We're in the 40s and the 50s. Right now, we have to sustain. And it will be extremely detrimental to any organization or company, because these are companies. Nonprofit is just a tax status. Right. And so understanding that these companies, it would behoove you to do your landscape analysis, to get your feet wet, to find out who, not only competition, but who your allies are, because both are important. Yeah. You need that motivation, you need that inspiration, but you need that accountability. And all of those things are going to be important for you to survive one day in this work and any work that you're doing.
Ooh, Aisha, please.
Wow. I don't know how I can follow like any of this.
No, girl, you did it to me too. Don't do that. You done dropped the mic on me about 17 times. They look at me and I do the Jordan shrug. I'm like, hey.
Yeah. Well, I want you to speak to Aisha, because I don't think that people realize that as my grandfather would say, that ineffectiveness is disrespect. Yep. I don't think that they realize that the ill preparedness is an actual disrespect to the mission and to the community that they hope to serve. Aisha, can you speak to that? And then I want you to weigh in down there too. That's some wow.
Yeah, I've had, I would definitely say I've served as a mentee or mentor for a lot of nonprofit, leaders who, in their hearts, their desire is to start their nonprofit, right? And before doing the research, before figuring out, who is maybe doing something very similar. And I usually always start with, because we're like a directory of knowing, as a neighborhood association, knowing what everybody's doing, I usually always direct them to someone who's doing something similar. And I tell them to volunteer. How about you go, if this is what you truly want to do, actually go and volunteer. That is still a thing, to volunteer in this day and age, to really learn. And I think for any business person, you always get around the people who are doing something similar so that you can learn, right? And then if there are truly some alignments there, of course, think about partnerships. But I think what I've seen from a lot of folks who start off is that the passion is there, but the articulation of what they want to do is missing. And so if you can't really truly express your why And the reason that you would like to start a nonprofit, like at the end of the day, who is trying to start a nonprofit, right? Like no one's like woke up and said, I want to start a business that makes no profit. Like that's not many people. So we know that, so that's a special trait. So I didn't wake up, but believe me, I did not wake up as a nonprofit. That actually doesn't even make sense, for a business. But I think if you truly are leading with passion and with love and something that you really do want to service a population, whatever that may be, then you also have to look at it as a business. And I think that's why I see a lot of things also fail, is that the passion is leading you to do it. You have the adrenaline, but you refuse to do the proper things to keep your business afloat. And if you don't do the proper things to keep your business afloat, and you run around trying to partner with everyone, you're not nurturing what you birth. And I think for me, I learned that like we were starting, Rage was started, and then we were like, oh, we need to start a CDC, a community development corporation. And we did it. And then we need to start. And then I looked back and was like, wait, let me actually nurture the growth of Rage and perfect it and get it structurally sound. So when I am ready to partner and ready to really, partner with another institution or another organization, we are structurally sound to do that. And I think a lot of times people just go without being structurally sound yet. And then they wonder why a partnership may have failed. And so, I admire anyone who, to me, it's an assignment. Most likely you're doing this as your assignment, and I admire anyone who is obedient and do their assignment. But it is also steps that you have to take to make sure that your assignment grows and flourish. And at that point, as it is growing and flourishing, partnerships, and I call them divine partnerships, align. They just come, they actually knock on your door. They say, the ones that you are like, oh my God, this is the partnership I was waiting for. And I think just having that patience and not thinking that you have to stretch yourself thin, partner with every organization, put a logo on every single flyer before you actually fix up your own business. I just would say take that advice for anybody starting out, looking to go down this path, because all of that is important.
Yeah. Nathaniel, I want you to answer this from an internal communication standpoint. As director of operations, how do you, everything that's communicated, how does that funnel down to your team?
Yeah, so I think, let's say if we have our outreach folks, our CEO, right, who's like having those meetings, starting these collaborations with the idea, I think the idea then has to come, to us on the back end, where we think about, okay, this is an amazing idea, a new project that we're going to co-lead. How can we make this actionable, right? What's our timeline? What are our KPIs? How are we going to measure success? How are we going to evaluate it afterwards? Having a run of show, all those things that, like, again, are happening in the background that you don't see. And I think it's extremely important to also follow up on the back end to be like, okay, we did the cool thing. We got the great press. Now let's actually talk about, was it successful? How could it be changed next time? Right. And have like a complete sheet of an evaluation of that, not only of the leadership, but also folks who were participants as well.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of thing is sometimes what we skip. And so then we miss the magic that made that collaboration possible to begin with.
Dion, how do you manage, how do you balance visibility and mission?
Ooh. Okay. And I think a lot of the people that we're connected or are connected to our organization can attest. Aisha, I'm sure, can attest. Which is also why, like, I do well with check-ins outside of the work. You know what I mean? So if I'm, close to Aisha's house or something like that, I used to pull up. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, you at home? And I'll pull up or something like that, because in order to do that, a lot of people mistake communications output with your actual programmatic output. And so I'm really good at running sleight of hand tricks. You know what I mean? So people would think your activity is what you're putting up on social media.
Right.
But it's actually the opposite for me. What I learned really quick was when we all come together, we're the super friends.
Yeah.
But when we're not together, we are supposed to make sure that we're doing everything we're supposed to do in our jurisdictions. And so if you notice, when the Justice League came together, Batman and Superman, they were together and they were stronger, and Wonder Woman and everybody else. But on its own, Batman was Batman.
Right.
And so that's how I think about it. It's to balance out. Visibility is fine, but visibility does not pay the bills. Visibility does not pay your team. Visibility does not deliver fresh produce. And so you have to make sure, which is also why when you look at how we communicate our impact and our mission and everything that we've done in scale too, it's always been about telling the story of how we get food to people, not sharing the story of the people at their lowest point. And so understanding that when you know who you, and that's why I always remind, like, I'm a comms guy. That's my training. That's my background. That's what I did in the military. That's what I love. But I also, I tell people the hardest thing sometimes is waking up and being consistent and making sure you commit to your training every single day. I don't wake up and want to be somebody else every day. No, we make sure we know the non-negotiables. We make sure we know what we have to do so that anything else is the frosting on the cake, but you can't get full off frosting.
This is true.
That's right.
This is true. Nathaniel, you guys aren't getting full off frosting, are you?
I think within the realm, that's my only nerdy operations advice is I think the death of a lot of collaborations is one CEO has one phone and it has all the contacts in it. And when that phone is broken or lost, there go all those options, right? So even if you're a small mom and pop nonprofit, have some kind of CRM. And I'm not saying you got to have something as expensive as like Salesforce.
Right.
That could be a Google Sheet. But make sure you're keeping track of contacts. So if the worst case scenario happens, you don't lose them.
That's another silo. The one phone, the one point, right, Aisha? The one phone, the one point of contact, one director of mission.
Yeah. That is, I learned that very quickly. I learned that very quickly. This is 15 years of the same phone number. So literally my number has became another rage hotline. And so I learned that very quickly. I tell my team all the time, get this out of my phone. I get it out. We have CRMs, we have systems, and then again, we have, over the last 15 years, I've met a sea of people. So, it is so important to have contacts in place that you can just share with your team and the whole nine. And then going back to just communication, just in general, I mean, that's how we, started. We were all volunteers at Rage. And so the only way that we could really do our work is really through social media and Google and communication. And so it was very important for us to establish that so early on, so that we are never like kind of missing the mark in terms of how we get our message out. And, Rage has been this platform to shine excellence on the Inglewood community. And so we make sure that everything you see on social, similar to what Dion said, is shining this excellence on the sea of people in Inglewood that are doing brilliant things. And we have a sea of members that every single day we're like, oh my God, we are the ultimate content creators because we have so much content of people and stories and their live experiences that really shape the magical part that we see as Inglewood.
This conversation has been so good, guys. I'm so sad to see it in another hour. But I want to start with Nathaniel. Nathaniel, tell people where they can find your information about your organization.
Yeah, sure. You can go to formyblock.org. That's FORMyBlock.org. Our hoodie ball is also happening tonight.
Woo-hoo!
So, hey, we still got tickets. Morgan Manufacturing. You don't got to wear a suit. Wear your favorite hoodie. I hope to see you there. And of course, we're doing some great activation on Earth Day.
That's a beautiful venue. Dion, where can
absolutely. Look, they can find us on every platform. Dion Chicago Dream. Of course, YouTube at Dion Chicago Dream. Personal at Dion Dawson, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. Absolutely. And they can also physically find me in Inglewood.
Yes.
That's neighborhood in the city.
Just saying. Aisha, where can they find you? And I want to give you the last word too. What's one step that they can people can do to start building with others instead of trying to do it alone? Tell them where they can find you and then answer that question and take us out.
Okay, they can find us similarly. We're on every single platform, usually Rage _ Inglewood, or just if you just Google Rage Inglewood. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Our website is rageinglewood.org, www.rageinglewood.org. Consider joining. Our members are phenomenal, great network. And what was the last question? I didn't hear the last question. And you can find me. I'm on Miss_Inglewood if you
Miss
care
underscore
to.
Inglewood. What's
Yes.
one step that someone can take to start building with others instead of trying to do it alone?
Observe, really connect, take your time to connect with others, do some research, show up at other places. They're very similar to, if it's a hoodie ball tonight and you want to partner with, my block, my hood, my city, you should be there at that hoodie ball. You should, connect. And I would say just do that with intention. In this really technology, AI-ish world, connection is key right now. People want human connection. And for me, relationship equity is one of the highest values that I have. And so build your relationship equity, and so that you do not have to ever falter in terms of your work. And so our relationship equity is worth trillions at this point, and I would not expend it for anyone. And I would just say, build your relationship equity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Deion Dawson, Nathaniel Viets Van Leer, and Aisha Butler. This has been Meeting the Moment. Remember, no organization has all the answers, but together we have enough. This has been Meeting the Moment. I'm Lorie Smith. It's powered by the Chicago Community Trust. Enjoy your Saturday, and I will see you next week. Thank you.
Well, anytime is a good time. On WVON.
Then, now, next, celebrating 63 years of Black excellence. We're WVON.
Here's BIN News Now.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says American children are the sickest generation in modern history.
Decades of failed policy, captured agencies, and profit-driven